video stream at 560theanswer.com.
This is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson on AM 560. The Answer.
Good morning, Dan and Amy. Well. Turns out LeBron James had his fingerprints on the Nike Colin Kaepernick ad. You know, the whole believe in something if it means sacrificing everything, like, I don't know, $70 million you're going to get from the NFL. Yeah, the heroic Colin Kaepernick.
Yeah. Good job.
The Castro-loving, cop-hating Colin Kaepernick. Phil Knight, during a recent talk, he's, of course, the co-founder of Nike, during a recent talk at Stanford's Business School, he said the Kaepernick ad would not have happened without LeBron James.
Really?
Yeah. When company CEO Mark Parker and Knight were first shown the Kaepernick ad, both were nervous about giving it the green light. And then Phil Knight remembered a conversation he'd had with LeBron James where James said he was worried his son might get shot by a policeman once he started driving because he was a young black man. So thinking about that, Knight approved the spot. Doesn't matter how many people hate your brand as long as enough people love it, said Knight. And you have to take a stand on something, which is ultimately why I think the Kaepernick ad worked. So there you go. Get LeBron James can share the credit with Phil Knight for that wonderful ad elevating that heroic Black Lives Matter patriot, Colin Kaepernick. I raised that because we're about to be joined by a LeBron James apologist.
Well, he likes his work on the basketball court.
Excuse me. He's committed the unforgivable sin, not a venial sin. A mortal sin in sports punditry. David French, who I otherwise enjoy, last year, it's difficult for me to explain what David French did. He wrote a piece arguing that LeBron James was the greatest of all time, better than Michael Jordan. Obviously, that's absurd, and I want to give David French an opportunity to apologize to Chicago for that column. David, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. I had forgotten that we were going to have this conversation this morning when I wrote this last night, but how perfect timing to defend myself in front of all of Chicago.
Well, why do you think LeBron James is better than Michael Jordan? And don't talk about the fourth. He's just surpassed him on the fourth time all-scoring list.
Yeah.
Well, there's a couple of things. I mean, 8 consecutive finals. Michael Jordan never beat a team as good as the Golden State Warriors team that LeBron James beat on the road in Game 7. Jordan never accomplished what he accomplished without Pippen, which Pippen is extremely underrated in the all-time rankings. You know, you remove Jordan from the 93 championship team, which won 57 games, and you had the whole starting 5 coming back, 4 of the starting 5, except for Jordan, except for the alleged GOAT, and they won 54 games. You moved LeBron James from about half of his teams that went to the finals, and those teams don't even make the playoffs.
Yeah.
I think LeBron has had greater. It's not Jordan's fault that he reached his ascendance as Magic was fading, as Bird was essentially gone when the NBA was, and it was before the rise of Shaq and Kobe. But it was a talent lull in the NBA, and he was the dominant player, absolutely, but in a talent lull in the NBA. LeBron has been the best player at a time of NBA renaissance when the talent level in the league is through the roof. And he's just done it longer and more consistently over years, and he still has more to go. I mean, if the Lakers can right the ship.
How are those Lakers doing?
They're not going to make the playoffs.
How are the Lakers doing 11th in the West? How are those LeBron Lakers doing?
Well, one of the problems was they were on a pace to be in a good playoff position, and he got hurt, which is unfortunate. But the first time may have been the longest extended absence of his career. So Yeah, this is a bad year. Lakers need to right the ship. I did not say that LeBron is the greatest general manager of all time. The hand-picked guys he brought in were not a good fit for the young Lakers. No question about that.
Yeah.
But I expect to see him back in the finals again. He's probably got 3, 4, 5 more years playing at a high level. And I think by that time the conversation will be pretty much over.
72 wins in 1995, coach on the court and a general manager on the court. Phil Jackson gets more credit than he deserves. 6 championships.
Oh, I'll agree on that.
6 championships.
I'll agree on that, but
6 championships to his 3.
That beat the 72 win record.
Yeah, I understand, but you can only play who you're up against in your career. I mean, so
yeah,
true. I mean, Michael Jordan, I think we'll just have to agree that he is the best basketball player of all time, and we'll just have to leave it there. All right, let's get to something we do agree on, and that's the importance of Jack Phillips and Masterpiece Cake Shop. Even after Supreme Court rules decidedly in his favor and on grounds of protection of religious liberty, Colorado Civil Rights Commission comes at him again for another cake he won't make. And ultimately, just this week, those charges against him were dismissed, thankfully. And my question, you wrote about this extensively, over the entire course of this saga. But my question is, does Jack Phillips represent something, particularly given what's happened in the Catholic Church, for example? Does he represent maybe the real hope for a return of Christianity in this country and it being something that is valuable, something that's respected? People like Jack Phillips who humbly, quietly live their faith, but will not yield when the mob comes for them.
Yeah, I mean, he's a real example of decency and courage. I mean, one of the things about this long-standing saga is that, when Americans actually got to hear him talk rather than sort of see him described in the way that the way that people called him names and attacked him so viciously, when they actually got to hear him talk and they heard his story and they heard what he actually believed instead of what people said that he believed, he had a remarkable impact on people. And it's very interesting to me that Justice Kennedy, who was the architect of same-sex marriage, I mean, this is the guy who wrote the Obergefell decision, if you read that opinion that he wrote, that Justice Kennedy wrote in the Masterpiece Cake Shop case, it's almost like he's protective of Jack Phillips. Like he identified the double standards that were applied to Jack Phillips and responded very aggressively to them. And one of the things that I wrote right after that opinion is that aggression from Justice Kennedy, that protectiveness from Justice Kennedy is going to have far more resonance than people realize, because in so many of these religious liberty cases, the kind of anti-Christian rhetoric that you saw in the Masterpiece Cake Shop case is present. And it was present again in the second round of the Masterpiece Cake Shop case. The Colorado Commission doubled down on their anti-Christian bigotry.
Switching gears a little bit, I want to get your reaction to this back and forth over debates, presidential debates. Jeffrey Toobin, who's a CNN analyst, writes this expansive piece in the New Yorker about Fox News. Apparently, there's a guy on Fox News named Sean Hannity, and he's very pro-Trump. I didn't realize this.
Never heard of him.
Yeah, and so that has prompted Tom Perez, who was also unaware of Sean Hannity and some of the other talent at Fox, to say Fox can't host any. We're not going to partner with Fox for any of our primary debates, which prompted Trump to say, okay, no problem. Good luck having POTUS debates in the general election without a POTUS. What do you make of this sort of really inside the bubble, inside the Beltway media sniping between the parties and between the pundits?
Yeah, I think it's giving folks on Twitter something to do for a day. I would have never expected the Democrats to do a Fox debate. I mean, I would have been surprised if they had done it, especially because, any Fox News debate would have been hosted by the hard news side of the network. the people who, like Brett Baer and others,
right,
who are outstanding journalists and will ask really tough questions. And so, these Democrats would go on a Fox News debate and be asked some questions that they would not be asked, say, on an MSNBC debate. And it probably wouldn't cast them in the best light. They might have their feet held to the fire about the Green New Deal, for example. So I never expected them to debate on Fox. Never expected it. So I think it's a tempest in a teapot, something that Twitter cares about for a day. But I never for a moment thought that the Democrats were going to expose themselves to that kind of questioning, especially that early in the process.
Really? I mean, CNN had Republican debates during the primary in 2016, and I thought it wasn't biased questioning.
No, I don't think it'll be biased questioning. I think it'll be hard questioning. Some of these Fox journalists are really good at their jobs, and I think that you might have some biased questioning. For example, in the MSNBC debates, I think they might be a little bit easier on some of these guys, or the kinds of topics. And sometimes it's not even a question of out and out bias. Sometimes it's what are the topics that the questioners are interested in or focused on, and that can tell a lot about what kind of debate. And look, the fact of the matter is, when you're looking at Republicans, for example, there's sort of one network that is counter-programming to the mainstream media, and then there's the whole rest of the media. And Republicans have a little bit of a dilemma. I mean, if they want to reach outside of the Fox News audience, they got to go to these other networks. All the other networks, their combined audience is, that when you're including the networks as well as the cable news, their combined audience is much larger than Fox. So you kind of have to go out of the Fox bubble if you're the GOP. And the Democrats don't necessarily have to go outside the mainstream media to reach the vast, vast, vast majority of the people they want to reach.
He is David French, writer at National Review, contributor to Time Magazine, constitutional lawyer, best-selling author, veteran of Operation Rocky Freedom. And David, I'm going to give you a chance to redeem yourself on the basketball thing. Most important game innovator at the guard position, Oscar Robertson or Pistol Pete Maravich?
Oh, I'm going to say Oscar Robertson.
All right, that's correct.
Pistol Pete was a tremendous scorer, creative scorer, but Oscar Robertson was Mr. Triple-Double before triple-doubles were cool.
Exactly. That's the correct answer, even though Pistol Pete is my idol. But that is the correct answer. It was almost a trick question because I thought you might go with Pistol Pete to try and get back in my good graces, but you stuck to your principles and you went with Oscar Robertson. Good for you. David French, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
It's like a hot, steaming cup of information to start your day. It's Chicago.